What if I told you that one king, with just a single command, brought the most powerful nation on earth to its knees? That's not a movie plot. It's the real story of King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, the man who turned a poor desert kingdom into a global force to be reckoned with. The year is 1973. This is the moment it all goes down. One man makes one decision that sends shockwaves across the entire planet and, completely redraws the global balance of power. So when the United States tried to pressure him, Faisal's response was just legendary. He said, "We and our ancestors survived on dates and camel milk. We will return to them." That one sentence right there tells you everything you need to know about the kind of man we're talking about today. Total defiance. But who was this man who had the nerve to stand up to a superpower? And maybe the biggest mystery of all, why was he assassinated at the absolute height of his influence? Well, in this explainer, we're going to unravel his incredible rise and his tragic and very controversial end. To really get who King Faisal was, we've got to rewind. We have to understand the kingdom he was born into, a nation literally forged in the desert sands, built on alliances, faith, and the ashes of fallen empires. So the story really kicks off way back in the 18th century with the pact that creates the very first Saudi state. You fast forward to World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapses, partly thanks to a British-backed Arab revolt. And suddenly, there's this huge power vacuum, and into that void steps a charismatic leader, Abdulaziz ibn Saud. With British backing, by 1932, he conquers the Holy Lands of the Hijaz and creates the modern Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, King Abdulaziz had this massive new kingdom to run, so he splits the responsibilities between his two oldest sons. Saud, the heir, gets the capital, Riyadh. But Faisal, the second son, gets what was arguably the most important job, governor of the Hijaz, which is home to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. And right around this time, something happens that changes literally everything. They discover oil. And this is where the central conflict of the next generation is born. It really is a tale of two princes, two brothers with completely different ideas about what their country's future should look like. I mean, just look at the contrast here. It's incredible. On one side, you've got King Saud, famous for his, let's call it extravagance. We're talking more than 100 concubines, 115 children, and just wild spending on palaces. Then on the other side, you have Prince Faisal. He was known for being deeply religious, a really skilled governor and diplomat who was constantly telling his brother to cool it with the spending. They were polar opposites. And here's where it gets really complicated. On his deathbed, their father, King Abdulaziz, apparently said he wished Faisal was his heir. He even said he wished he had 3 more sons just like him. But tradition was tradition, so he made Faisal swear a sacred oath of loyalty to his older brother, Saud. And that oath, it would haunt Faisal for years. Under King Saud, that spending just went into overdrive. Get this, the royal palaces alone cost over $1 billion. To put that in perspective, this oil-rich nation was driven into so much debt that it was on the verge of total bankruptcy. So the country is literally about to collapse. The rest of the royal family, the religious leaders, they all go to Faisal and basically beg him to take over. They want him to be king. But because of that oath he made to his father, he says no. He refuses the throne. Instead, they reach a compromise. Faisal will rule as prime minister, and his brother can stay on as a kind of figurehead king. And this kicks off a whole new chapter. Faisal is now fighting a battle on 2 fronts, trying to modernize a deeply conservative nation while at the same time dealing with his own brother, who definitely was not ready to just step aside. Things finally came to a head in this incredibly tense standoff. King Saud tries to take back power and sends his personal royal guard to arrest Faisal. But, and this is key, the national army was loyal to Faisal, so they respond by surrounding the king's palace. With the army, the royal family, and the religious leaders all backing Faisal, Saud had nowhere to go. He was forced to abdicate, and Faisal at last became the undisputed king of Saudi Arabia. And as king, Faisal did not waste any time. He kicked off some truly stunning reforms. He abolished slavery, and get this, he personally paid for the freedom of thousands of slaves. He slashed those huge allowances for the princes, and then he did something that was absolutely revolutionary for the time and place. He opened the first ever schools and universities for girls, and he launched the country's first national television station. But as you can imagine, when you push for that much change that fast, you're going to get some serious pushback. Conservative clerics were furious, and even some of his own family members were against him. That new TV station became a real flashpoint. In fact, one of Faisal's own nephews, a prince, led a protest and attacked the station. In the chaos that followed, he was shot and killed by the police. A terrible tragedy, and one that would have fatal consequences years later. Okay, so now let's circle all the way back to where we started, 1973. Now that you know about Faisal's character, his deep faith, and his style of leadership, you can understand why he made the decision that absolutely shook the world. The first trigger was the burning of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, which is Islam's third holiest site. Faisal was outraged. He used his immense influence to bring Muslim nations together, forming what we now know as the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC. Almost overnight, he became the undisputed leader of the Muslim world. Then, during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, the United States makes a huge move. They send a massive $2.2 billion military aid package to Israel. This aid completely turns the tide of the war, and for Faisal, it was a direct betrayal. And this is the moment. From his office, King Faisal gives the historic order. I hereby order that all oil shipments to the United States be stopped. From this day forward, not a single drop of Arab oil will go to America. Just like that, he had turned oil into a weapon. The impact was an absolute earthquake. I mean, the shock to the global economy was immediate and devastating. You can see how badly the US, Europe, and Japan were hit. In America, it caused mass layoffs, strict energy rationing, gas station lines that snaked on for miles. They even canceled the national Christmas lights to save power. The superpower had been brought to its knees. Faisal had won. He had stared down a superpower and forced the entire world to listen. But that kind of defiance, it comes with a price. And that brings us to the final, tragic act of his story. It's March 25th, 1975. King Faisal is holding a public audience when he's approached by his own nephew, the brother of the very same prince who was killed at that TV station protest years before. The nephew pulls a gun and shoots the king twice, killing him. It's reported that Faisal's last words were a plea to forgive his own killer. So the question that still hangs over this event is, was this just a personal vendetta, a terrible family tragedy playing out over a decade? Or was it a political conspiracy, a hit designed to remove a leader who had just become far too powerful on the world stage? And this is where the story really splits into. On the left, you've got the official motive, simple revenge for his brother's death, carried out by an assassin who is declared mentally unstable, a tragic family affair. But there's another theory, that this was direct retaliation for the oil embargo. It's pointed out that the assassin had just come back from living in the US, and that if you ask who benefited most from Faisal's death, well, the US and Israel are at the top of that list. And so that's the question we're left with. Was King Faisal the last great king who truly dared to challenge the world order? A leader who managed to unite a fractured world around a single cause? And did he, in the end, pay the ultimate price for that incredible act of defiance? It's something to think about.